Hello and welcome to the sign shop demonstration video. In this video we're going to go over how to make a sign shop, some quick little extra add-ons you can do with some redstone to make your shops nicer, and finally at the end we'll have some commands for those who are interested in how the sign shops actually work with the data pack. To get started, you're going to need to place down 2 chests, and you're going to need to lock them. Currently you can just open these chests no problem, but sign shops require that the sending and receiving chest both be locked so that only the shop owner can open them. To do this, you need to make a written book and title it. So I've titled this one Password, and then you need a corresponding item with the same name. So the stick is also named Password. You can do this in an anvil, and you can do this in the book interface. And you just drop the written book on top of both chests, and now you will notice that they are both locked and can only be opened with the password stick. The next thing you need to do is drop a hopper onto the back chest, and the final thing you need to do is make your sign shop. So you just open a sign and you call it sign shop. It must be a wall sign, it cannot be placed on the block below. And then on the second line you write your amount of emeralds required to purchase from the shop. This can be anything between 1 and 64, and so I'm going to make this shop cost 2 emeralds. The next thing that you're going to need to do is load up your shop. The way that the sign shop works is that it looks for the first item it can find inside the chest and sells that stack to the player. So if you want to sell a specific number of things, like here I'm selling 32 warped planks, you're going to need to make sure that you have that specific stack. So if I wanted to sell 16, I would need to split all of these up again so that I could have 16. Now to actually have your sign shop exist with the data pack, you need to just throw a stick in front of the sign. And after you do that, you'll notice that in spectator mode there's an armor stand hidden behind that sign, and anytime a player comes up and tries to use a carrot on a stick with the sign, they will either purchase, not purchase, depending on the states of the shop. So here you can see that this shop costs 2 emeralds, but I only have the 1 in my inventory, and that's why I'm getting this message, you don't have enough emeralds to purchase from the shop. However, if I change that, now I do have enough, you'll see that I lost 2 emeralds and got a stack of 32 wooden planks. I'm going to bump up my stack now and try to buy quickly. You'll notice that sometimes you get messages, the shop is processing the last transaction, please wait. That's because the way that the shop takes emeralds from you is it puts them into this hopper, and then it needs to wait for the hopper to be clear before it can process the next transaction. So, some extra things you can do to make your shop nicer. We can go over that right now. Let me move these emeralds. Oh, there we go. So to check the busy status of your shop, you can actually take a comparator out and you can build a frame around your shop. I'm using a stair so I can still access that bottom chest. And now when somebody purchases from the shop, it'll play a little tone, and the busy indicator will be turned on when the shop cannot purchase anything. You can obviously change this tone. If you want it to be a higher pitch, you can move this block to on the side and put any regular block here. If you want to put a block under your no block and have a different instrument play when somebody purchases from your shop. So there is a high pitch tone when you purchase, and if I purchase everything in this shop, it is now empty. You even get a message that the shop is out of stock and you can't purchase anything else. Some quirks about the sign shop data pack right now is that it only works with oak signs. I could expand it to work with all types of signs, and that very well might possibly happen in a future update. However, I don't have intentions to do it right now. It also adds many more commands to the data pack. And other than that, there's nothing really for issue except besides that you cannot access the chest because the armor stand blocks your interaction right here. So if you want to access the chest, you need to go off onto the side to click on it. You can access this one relatively easily. So that's it for the sign shop demonstration. If you are not interested in seeing how the data pack works, then you can close this video. Okay, if you're still watching the video, then you're wanting to know how the sign shop works. So we can go over that really quickly. I'm not going to get too in-depth into these commands. I'm going to assume that you have some sort of knowledge of how execute commands work and other various commands in Minecraft. The first thing that we need to go over is there are 3 scoreboard objectives that get added when you load up the data pack. 2 of them are dummy. This third one right here, Sign Shop Right, keeps track of how many times a player has used a carrot on a stick. Sign Shop Emeralds keeps track of how many emeralds are in the purchaser's inventory, and Sign Shop Safe is used to get rid of sign shops that are actually not sign shops anymore. The armor stand would remain behind until killed because it's invulnerable, so you need to manually get rid of it using some commands, and that's what that's used for. We're going to hop over into the tick function, and this whole function is basically broken up into a couple main sections. In this section highlighted, we spawn the armor stand underneath of a stick for each different direction. In this section, we kill sign shops that shouldn't exist anymore. Right here, we're making locked chests. Here, we're testing for right clicks. And right here, we are using just getting rid of that extra scoreboard value of whenever you right click with the carrot on a stick. We want to make sure that that's at 0 at the beginning of every function run. So to go over this execute command really quickly, we're just executing as a Minecraft item. That's a stick. We're aligning to its block position, centering on that block. We're making sure that we have an oak wall sign that is facing a direction, and making sure that it has that sign shop in square brackets text. Then we test to make sure that both chests are present and they are both locked, and finally the hopper is also present. The final thing we're checking is that there's not already an armor stand that is too close. We don't want to make too many sign shops in one single spot, and we don't want to be spawning a bunch of armor stands unnecessarily when one already exists. Finally, we just summon that armor stand. We summon it a little bit behind the sign. That's why we have one for every direction here. And finally, just the tags that the armor stand has. It's invisible, invulnerable, it persists, it has no gravity, it's small, and it's tagged with sign shop. We use that sign shop tag to address it everywhere else. In this earlier part now, we go and we add 0 to all armor stands with the sign shop tag in the sign shop safe. This just puts them into the scoreboard. The next thing we do is we run this execute. We're running it as those same armor stands at their position, and we're checking to make sure that that sign, the first chest, the second chest, and the hopper are all there, and if they are, that sign shop is safe, and we give it that tag of 1. Finally, we kill any armor stand that's a sign shop that never got the safe tag during that tick. That means that one of those blocks was missing and it's no longer a sign shop. The player can remake the sign shop, they're just going to need to drop another stick. Finally, we just set all those scores back to 0 that we just set to 1. The next thing in this tick function is locking chests. We're executing as another item, but this time it's a written book. We're aligning to its position, making sure it has a title, making sure it's on a chest, and then modifying the chest's lock tag to be the title of the book. That's right here. Setting the lock tag from the book entity's title. I'm going to skip this because that's going into the next file. Right here, we are just getting rid of all of the right clicks that the player has accumulated in this tick by right clicking with the carrot on a stick. We want it to be 0 so that we know that the 1 value represents that a carrot on a stick was clicked just this tick. So now here on this execute, we're executing as any player that has right clicked with a carrot on a stick. We are doing this sort of look casting method to see if it's looking at a sign. I'm not going to go over this, you can find it online. That's what I did. It was actually a really clever solution. It basically moves forward a block in the direction the player is looking while facing the armor stand, and then moves back from wherever it just moved from, facing the player. And if the player was looking at the sign shop, then it should be within a certain distance of the player. That's that last tag right there. So Then if that all went through, then we run the buy function because the player was actually trying to buy from a sign shop and not just randomly clicking with a carrot on a stick in their hand. So here in the buy function, we have all the variation of parameters for all the amounts that a sign shop could have and the directions that it could be facing. There's no way to do this dynamically because the text is stored as a JSON string and not as MBT data inside of a sign. So the first thing we do is we store how many emeralds are inside of the player's inventory by running a clear command with max clear set to 0. This will just find how many affected items were in the inventory, and we store the result inside of a score, and that's the sign shop emerald score. The next thing we do is we execute as the player trying to buy, and we check to see if they have enough emeralds, and if they don't, we tell them that they don't. The next command checks to see if there was an item inside the hopper, because then the shop is busy. And the final command checks to see if the shop is also out of stock, and if the player needs to come back later. Now, this final command is doing all of that same stuff, except the inverse, so we're checking to make sure that we're still at a sign shop, that there's items in the chest that the player can receive, that the player has enough emeralds to pay for the items in the chest, and that the hopper is empty so that the shop can receive the emeralds. And then we run this finalize function here, and you see that each one also has the variation of number and direction. So here is that finalize. We tell the player that they just purchased for 1 emerald and remove an emerald from their inventory. Here is the trick for getting the item out of the chest. We spawn an item centered on the block the player is on. It's just a stick initially, but then we run modify on its data and set its ID to be from the chest's first slot ID, and we do the same thing for the count. So now that spawned item's ID and count match the first item in the array of items that the chest has. Now we just remove that first item from the array of items that the chest has, and then we need to give emeralds to the shop. So we modify the hopper's items array and append a value of Minecraft emeralds with the corresponding count into the shop. That's how the whole thing works. If you have any questions or comments, I'd love to hear them. Be on the lookout for any possible future updates, and thanks for checking out SignShops.